is one of my favorite things that I get to do. And it is really all about sharing some of the work that I am so proud of that we've created here in Nebraska. So just a little bit about myself and my team. This is my team. We are uniquely situated in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're so incredibly lucky and we understand that. So we try not to rub it in anybody's face. But we are incredibly lucky. In Nebraska, our schools are still required to have school librarians in every single school um, as part of our accreditation law. And so throughout the state of Nebraska, we have librarians in every elementary, middle, and high school. The amount of librarian is determined by the enrollment number at that school. So we don't always have full-time librarians, but we do have librarians. And in Lincoln, we have 42,000 students in our district. We have 62 schools with libraries, including 40 elementary schools, 12 middle schools, and 8 high schools, plus some behavior programs. And so it is my work and the work of my team to make sure that what is happening in our libraries is essential work and work that we hope administrators and school boards and educators across the state will recognize as being essential to the students that we serve. My team, I work at the district office. I'm the director of libraries, and I have 3 other librarians who work with me full time. So I have Joy Harvey, she's the coordinator of our libraries, and then Emily Jacobs and Betsy Thomas, who work as instructional leaders and coaches to our librarians out in the field. And so it's this team that has developed most of the things that we'll be looking at today, always in collaboration with our school librarians. Up until this year, we've always been able to meet monthly with our school librarians. Now that has changed, so we only meet quarterly, but we meet for a bigger chunk of time. So we still have access to all of our librarians who help us shape and make our resources better and better and better all the time. So that is who we are. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to do this. I'm going to put the link of this slideshow in the chat so that everybody can get to it. One of the, I think, key elements of this slideshow is that everything that I'm going to share with you and show you today is completely 100% open to for anyone to use. We believe in great librarians everywhere. We want there to be strong libraries and library programs across the nation, and so we share what we can to contribute to that. So, oh, come on. Oh, my thing was being a little sluggish. So now that I've told you all the, riches that we have here in LPS, recognizing that we are incredibly lucky, and that's why we share what we do. I have a story that really started this work off. And this took place about 4 years ago now. It was June. Summer had just started here in Lincoln Public Schools. And I was contacted by one of our elementary principals who was in a bit of a budget crunch. And so she was contemplating making her librarian half-time. In LPS, our elementary librarians serve as part of the plan time coverage rotation. So kids go to PE one day, they go to art one day, they go to music one day, and they go to library one day. So all of our elementary librarians see every kid in the building on a rotation of days for 50 minutes at a time. So we have regular access to our students. That's a beautiful and important thing. Well, this principal was wrestling with some pretty tough decisions, and she was trying to decide whether to make her librarian half-time. If she did make her librarian half-time, that means a librarian would be able to serve just in the mornings. And so she would be able to see every kindergarten, first grade, and second grade student on a rotation of days for 50 minutes a week. But she would then never get to see third grade, fourth grade, or fifth grade. She simply wouldn't be on contract for that for the rest of the day when they were in their rotation. And so this principal wanted to know, could she do that? And then she recognizes that librarians teach important things. Could she have the classroom teachers teach their own students what they would otherwise learn in the library? And in order to do that, could she please just have a list of things that librarians teach at third grade, at fourth grade, and at fifth grade? Well, that's where I sort of started to panic. A list of things that we teach. I mean, we know what we teach. We teach kids to love reading. We teach them to be information literate. We teach them to be smart consumers and users of information. And but 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 what does that mean exactly? Where's the list? And so I was a little stymied. And I was stymied because here in my district, we didn't have clear evidence of instructional goals, or even any evidence of the specific skills that our librarians teach. And by not having that, I wasn't able to articulate to a principal or to a board member, this is what we teach. And by not being able to do that, how easy is it to cut a librarian if they can't articulate exactly what skills they teach? And so it put me into a panic there because I was afraid that we were missing that piece that every other curriculum area has. I mean, nobody ever talks about cutting art in Lincoln anyway. I know other places do. Nobody ever talks about cutting PE or science or even music. It's always library. And the thing that they all have that we didn't were detailed, specific learning objectives. We had touchy-feely descriptions of our program that really never had a chance of speaking to our principals and administrators. What we did have were our AASL standards. And I know everyone is familiar with these. We take them to heart. We do a lot of planning and thinking around the AASL standards. But what I found with these standards, while they're helpful to me as a professional and as a librarian, they aren't that helpful to my administrators because they're vague and they're very broad. And they're a little bit difficult to understand when you're outside of the profession. Sometimes they're difficult to understand when you're inside the profession. But the AASL standards were not helpful to me when I needed to say to a principal, this is what we teach in third grade. And so while we value AASL's work and our AASL professional standards. We thought we needed a little something different. And thinking about it, I had to consider, what do my administrators respond to, right? What makes them feel a sense of urgency or a sense of value in the course of how they allocate their time and their resources and their budgets, right? Well, they respond to objectives, and they want objectives that are detailed, that are tailored to the age and grade level of students, that are specific to a real instructional goal, and that maybe most importantly, are aligned to their school improvement goals. If we as librarians can't articulate how our instruction is supporting those school improvement goals, we are in big, big trouble. And that's where I found myself that summer of 2020. Well, in my despair and desperation, I spent one afternoon lazing around just a little bit and reading the professional journals. I was catching up on SLJ and Knowledge Quest and some of those journals that I just hadn't gotten enough time to read. And I came across this article that was submitted by Barbara Stripling. Now, I don't know if you guys remember Barbara Stripling. My era of librarian was like, oh, Barbara Stripling, fangirl, fangirl. She was a president of ASL, and she did all kinds of great work in the area of information literacy. So I'm reading this article, and it is talking about how Barbara and her team in New York State created, their own learning objectives for their library programs. And they called it the Empire State Information Fluency Continuum. Now that's a mouthful, but I dug around in it. It was like a tiny miracle had landed in my lap. Anyway, the State Information Fluency Continuum did something I think that was amazing. They took and created their own anchor standards, they call them, the big things that they as librarians address in their instruction. And then they broke those down into grade level specific objectives. And then they put all of this work, which I've linked to over here, I could show you this work, all of this work onto the website, and they put it in the Creative Commons for anyone to use and to, remix and to tailor to their own needs. It was one of those moments, like a lightning flash moment for me. Let me get to where I was. It was something that just set me on fire. So I spent days and days and days digging into the Empire State's Information Literacy Continuum. And it was good stuff. It was great stuff. And it was exactly what started me on my path to creating something that would work for our Lincoln librarians. What it did was it created some big what ifs for me. What if we had all of the resources we needed to guide new librarians and inform administrators about what exactly good instruction looks like in the library, right? What if we had our own continuum of library skills that were the focus of our instruction? And then what if we could build it out so on top of just having learning objectives, we had high quality resources and lesson plans and everything a librarian would need to do their best instruction. What if we had all of those things? Well, lucky me, that was also the year that it kind of rained ESSER funds in our district. And so I was able to pull together librarians outside of their contract time. It was summer, and we had ESSER funds um, to work on building these three, I think, kind of essential things that have really uh, uh, kind of revived our library programs in our district. The first was we wrote objectives for our school librarians, objectives that were specific to every grade level. Then starting with elementary, we wrote lessons that would teach to every single one of our objectives. And then we would create a LibGuide that would organize all of the resources and make it super simple for any librarian to access. This has been our work for the last 4 or 5 years. So the first thing we did was to develop our objectives. Let me see if this is clickable here. Yes, it is. We started with Stripling's anchor standards. That was our inspiration. And we broke down each of those anchor standards into, again, specific objectives that make sense to administrators. And when you look at these objectives, you're like, oh yeah, kids really do need to learn that. If they aren't learning it in their classroom, where else would they learn that? And that's where we as librarians own and have claimed this important instruction for ourselves. This is why we're important to fund. This is why we're important to have in every school, because we teach these things. And if not for us, these things likely wouldn't be taught. So we broke it down. This document that's linked in the slides has all of our objectives, and they're a little bit color coded. The first set is for grades K through 2. You can see that the language they're written in is very specific and very detailed. We think it's important that kindergarten through second graders can distinguish what is factual and what is imaginary, that they participate in small and large group presentations and develop behaviors of a respectful audience member, that they know and use good internet manners, that they understand how to choose online resources that fit their reading and interest level. So we detailed all of the objectives by grade level beta. So we have kindergarten through second grade, third through fifth grade, sixth through eighth grade, and then ninth through 12th. Now we started with Stripling's information literacy continuum, but then we beat those up and reformed them and reshaped them to make them our own. And we expanded on them somewhat from the Stripling model before, but we made something that worked for us. That was our first step. And we spent a whole year of PLC time where we met once a month, wordsmithing and grinding them down and looking for what was repetitious and what was missing, and making sure that these objectives fit our vision for what a librarian teaches in this day and age. So that was our first step, and it took a while, right? From then, or from this document, then we started with elementary, because elementary was actually our lowest hanging fruit. our elementary librarians have guaranteed instructional time with students. They have 50 minutes with them every week to provide a good lesson. They see them continuously throughout the year and throughout the years as the grade levels rotate through. And so we've parceled out our objectives and we began writing lessons for each grade level. And the first thing we did was we decided what should be taught in kindergarten during the first quarter. What should be taught, in kindergarten during the second quarter. And we built it and built it and built it and, until we, let me get to this document, finally had what we decided was a pacing guide. A pacing guide for every grade level for every quarter. Now, our rough math, if we roughly estimated a quarter, a librarian who maybe would see kids on a 4 to 5 day rotation, they might have those students up to 11 times. But then in our schools where we only have a half-time librarian, maybe they're half-time library, half-time computer science, that's a very typical model in our libraries, they would only see those students as the librarian five times a quarter. And so we had to make sure as we were pacing to plan for both of those models, the full-time librarian and the half-time librarian. So what we did, we started building lessons and finding the lessons that we were already using with our students. And we made sure that in the course of the year or the years, every single one of our objectives would be taught. So you can see we have 4 quarters of kindergarten, 4 quarters of first grade, all the way through 5th grade. Now, as we were planning this, we could have done this a couple different ways, but I chose intentionally to organize this so that you could see everything that a full-time librarian teaches in a quarter. And by comparison, you could see the things that a half-time librarian could teach in a quarter. And this was maybe a little passive-aggressive of me, because this is a document that I frequently share with building administrators, principals, the school board, when I talk about what our librarians teach and what their instruction should look like in the library. And I wanted it to be in their face that if they have a half-time librarian, this is what their students are getting, and it's good stuff. It's important stuff. But there's a lot of stuff they're not getting if compared to those schools that have a full-time librarian. So that was, yes, passive-aggressive, intentional, and it still kind of thrills me a little that I get to communicate that as I share this document to principals and administrators. If you invest in a full-time librarian, you get a whole lot more. And if you invest in a half, well, you get good stuff. But a half a sandwich is only half a sandwich. If you pay for half a sandwich, you don't get the whole thing. And so, yeah, it's totally passive-aggressive. The really powerful thing about this document is that every lesson is linked. And so all of these lessons have fully built out lessons behind them. So you can click on any one of them and go directly to that lesson, which would include every single resource a librarian might need to teach this particular lesson. It's pretty dang beautiful. And we have been working on building these out then for the last 3 years. Um, which goes back to, I have to stick with my slides here so I don't get off kilter. It goes back to our third goal, which was to put everything in one place, to make it super simple for any librarian to walk in and have exactly what they need to start their instruction. We know a lot of our librarians are brand spanking new. Gosh, we've had a lot of turnover since COVID spring, right? We've turned over well over half our librarians, and many of our librarians came to us without their endorsement or any sort of background in what they should be teaching in the library. And so this gave us a tool for helping them know this is what's important. This is what we focus on in our library instruction. And so our our third goal was then to build it all into this LibGuide. And this is just one of my favorite things ever. This LibGuide is a one-stop shop. And in it, you'll find our library objectives. You click on that and you'll see everything. You'll find our quarterly lessons at a glance, that pacing guide I just shared with you. But then it just goes so much deeper. If I were to click on any one of these, let's see, second grade, first quarter, I can see that in second grade, first quarter, I have options for all of these lessons. The halftime librarians know they should focus first on the ones that have the little asterisk by them. Those are the most essential as decided by our PLC of librarians. But if I go, let's say I go to this I Wonder lesson, second grade, first quarter. Here is the meat and potatoes right here. This lesson plan will give me everything I need to teach. If there's a PowerPoint or slides created to go with it, they're in here. If there's something that I would print out for the students to, take notes or interact with, the link to it is in here. It's already, everything is created. Everything is ready to be taught. And all of it is right here in one place. Also, at the top of our LibGuide, we have book suggestions for read alouds for this library time. This lesson happens to have something to do with the quokka, so we have quokka books. Some of them are digital in our ebook collection. So you just click on them to be able to just, display them and read them aloud. Some of them are just really common titles that are available in a lot of libraries. And if you don't have it in your library, you can pick something else. But also, you might want to put it on your order list for the next year because it'd be a really good one to go with this particular lesson. So we have book suggestions across the top. Some of them have more than others. This one just has a couple. We have that whole lesson. We have the specific objectives that we want to make sure that librarian is addressing in this lesson, because sometimes you miss you just miss the point of the lesson, and you teach and you teach and you teach and you're like, oh, I was supposed to be talking to students about asking questions in response to listening, so it has those objectives listed out. And then it has other things that might go well with this lesson. In this case, there's a video that the kids might watch after they check out books. There's suggestions and ideas from librarians who've been teaching this lesson and now have said, oh, you know what I did? I did this too at the end of the lesson, or in the middle, I swapped this out for this. And these are suggestions for our librarians for some alternate ways to teach it. And then this is one of my favorite parts. We have these feedback slips that, oh, wait, that's not it. That's not what I meant. Where did it go? Here it is. These lesson summaries that you would print out and give to the classroom teacher when they come to pick up their class. And that little slip says, look, this is what your students learned today. See, it's real important stuff that we're teaching in the library. These are the skills that we practiced, and that gives the teacher, it's a great advocacy piece, right? Because it informs the teacher and other adults in the building what it is that you're teaching to. And also, it gives the teacher the opportunity to connect what's going on in the classroom to what students learned in the library. So it's huge and easy way to advocate and communicate with your classroom teachers and with your principal. We have librarians who will print an extra one of these off, and every week they put a stapled bundle in the principal's box that says, here's what we did at every grade level in the library this week, so that the principal understands we're teaching real things, we're having real instruction, and it's good stuff. So those are available for every single lesson too. So let me get back to so that is our LibGuide. And one thing that I'm super proud of with our LibGuide is that, let me pop back there, I guess. Every single thing that's in here, we've put in the Creative Commons, and we've made available to any librarian anywhere. All of our lessons, all of the slideshows, all of the resources, all of the summary sheets, everything that's been created is wide open so that any librarian anywhere can use them. They're not 100% perfect yet. I mean, we really just began teaching these 2 years ago, and so we're still finessing some of them. Occasionally there will be a link that somebody will, reach out to me and say, hey, I can't get into this one. If that's the case, it's an accident. We just changed permissions on something and forgot to make it open to anyone. So if there's something that you can't get in there, it's because we forgot to do it. And if you just reached out to us, we'll open it up to you. The only exception is any subscription services that we're accessing. We teach lessons about PebbleGo, and we teach lessons about Worldbook or our ebooks. And obviously, we can't make those available to the general public, but it would be easy for a librarian to use that lesson while teaching to their own purchased content. So there's some purchased content, but it's pretty generalized in most cases. FYI, I am talking so fast that I'm not able to follow the chat. So if there's questions that come up or things that I need to hear about right away to address, would you please be sure to unmute and just interject? Because I just can't do those things at the same time. Susie?
Thanks, Dr. Haeffner. No, just lots of, this is brilliant. You are my library hero. Folks are sharing some resources that they've created that kind of align with some of the ideas you're sharing. So great discussion in the chat, and absolutely, I'll let you know if there's some questions that come up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we've had all of our lessons in place now for a few years. But now, I mean, it was kind of the quick and ugly version to begin with, right? We did a ton of writing jammed into one summer and the PLCs of the school year that following year. So some of them were a little rough to begin with. And now what we've been doing for the last couple years is refining them, enhancing them, and trying to make them as strong as we possibly can. Ooh, I already told you about this. I'm going to skip on by that. What we did our final year of PLC was our librarians, our elementary librarians in different groups, each chose a specific lens to kind of assess and evaluate their lessons. And some of them chose to look at engagement strategies or movement strategies or any one of these 5 things listed on the screen. And then in that final year, they built in more engagement more differentiation, more assessments. And so we're continually trying to add layers just to make those lessons fit. Uh, Again, the school improvement goals that our librarians are working under, and to really increase engagement in as many ways as we possibly can. We want our lessons to be fun, right? We want kids to come to the library and feel joyous about what they do in there with their librarian. And so our hope is that none of this is like grueling instruction. And if it is, we've done it wrong. And there, just at our last librarian meeting in September, we brainstormed a list with our librarians, or what are the worst lessons to teach? What are the ones that the kids hate and complain the most about? And that you're like, oh, I don't like teaching this one. So we got a list of the ones that need some work in terms of um, reframing with more engagement and more exciting ways to do the work. And so we're always finessing them and trying to make them better. Um, and so that's where we are at with our elementary lessons. Now, some of you might be sitting there going, yeah, but I'm secondary. So while all of this is lovely, it doesn't apply to me and it doesn't help me one little bit. Well, we did start with elementary because it's where we had the most buy-in, we had the most leverage, and we had the most instruction happening in our elementary libraries. But in the last 2 years, then we have worked super hard with our secondary librarians then to collaborate and curate more and more and more ways that they can connect with teachers to provide really meaningful instruction that meets their objectives as well. And so we have, it's not nearly as pretty as our elementary, but we have a whole host of things for our middle school librarians as well as our high school librarians. And it started, well, again, it started with building our objectives. And once we built our objectives, then we recognize that every middle school and high school librarian does things differently. And the way they collaborate with teachers and who they collaborate with plays out differently from school to school to school. So it didn't make sense to say, here's the order of lessons that you teach with this teacher in this content area at this time of year. It doesn't work that way in high school. Nor do we have ninth grade lessons and 10th grade lessons and 11th grade lessons, because those kids, with the exception of a few courses, are all mixed up in classes. And so we had to think differently about how we provide instruction at the secondary level. And so let me skip around here. So one of the first things we did was obviously to create our objectives. I'm skipping back here, but then this is our middle school library skills page. If I go to this secondary library skills link, I can toggle between middle school and high school. So what we did was we began building library lessons. We first focused on digital citizenship and media literacy. So we took all of those objectives and skills and we handed them out. We assigned is not the right word, but every librarian took responsibility for creating content to teach to that objective. And then what we did, I think was a little out of the box thinking. We don't have guaranteed time with kids, and we don't have guaranteed ins with teachers. But chances are any teacher in any class would be able to afford us 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning of class or 3 or 4 minutes at the end of class if we had something important to talk about that tied to their instruction. And so what we did was we identified the objective and we identified a really great place to teach it, like a health class or a social studies class or a psychology class. And our librarians then built two things. First, they built a slideshow, very brief, and then they built a script so that any librarian from any school could go in and use their slides and record themselves presenting through that script to create a 4 minute or so lesson tailored with their own librarian's voice to their school and their teachers and their students. And so now our librarians can go and if they're doing a lesson on AI accuracy, here's the, let me click on this, let me make it bigger. Here's the slideshow. There we go. Here's the slideshow I can use. The script is already created, but I could totally change it if I want. But in 5 minutes flat, I could record this quickie lesson. And then I can send it to my teachers and say, hey, this is really important content and it'll go with what you're teaching this week. Would you mind sharing it before, at the beginning or at the end of your class? And if you want more in-depth instruction from me about it, reach out to me and I would be happy to do that. So we have a huge series of these quickie kind of intro. How come this won't there we go. Intro lessons in the format of slideshows that any librarian can record and tailor for themselves to send out to their teachers. That's where we started with our middle school and our high school librarians. Then we started looking at their overall plan for their year. And what I know is that when I was a new middle school librarian, I'd never taught in a middle school before. I tried to, and I think I did a pretty good job reaching out to teachers and uncovering those connections that I could support in teaching and providing instructions. But it took years for me to figure out where were those connections where I could easily create a collaboration with a teacher, right? Where I could easily woo them into working with me for instruction. What are those things that I could teach? And it took a long time for me to develop that. Well, we've got great librarians who are doing amazing things every quarter out there. And so we decided we would have our librarians provide kind of a diary of what they teach every week throughout the quarter. And it's going to be super different from one school to the next. But we took those, it was a form they filled out and they're continuously filling out for us. We took all of their, they're not even ideas, but they're plans. This is what they really teach in their school. In middle school, oh, let me scroll down. In week 6, the Irving librarian is teaching responsible use and Chromebook care lessons. The Pound librarian is teaching about Sora ebooks and how to access them from the public library. Let's see, the Dawes librarian is teaching vocabulary strategies during personal reading. And the Moore librarian is teaching culturegrams and country books through one of our databases. So she's teaching all about that database access to one of her groups. So we've collected all of those things and combined them into one place so that any librarian could look at this and say, huh, the eighth week of school is coming up. I see that some librarians are teaching about ebooks or book care. I could totally do that. I mean, I wasn't planning on doing that. I didn't have that idea, but man, if I talked to my sixth grade teachers, I could totally do that too. Or if I talked to my life skills teacher, maybe I could do some sort of read aloud with them that connects to what they're doing in their classroom. Or so what this serves as is a launching pad for creating better opportunities for collaboration in your own school. Will any librarian do all of these things? No, never. And that's not the point. What the point of this is to provide kind of an eye-opening menu of things that are already happening in libraries across our district. And so that, if one librarian has connected with their health teacher in week 2, maybe another librarian will say, well, heck, I'm going to reach out to my health teacher and find those ways to better and more powerfully connect. Like all of our library lessons, these librarians generously shared everything they've created for these lessons or activities that they've added to our week by week, and they're open to the entire public. Anybody can view them and use them. So certainly your district, I'm sure your health class may not have the same pacing as our health classes, or your English courses may not have the same thing happening in third quarter as ours, but it is a really good way, I think, to expand your thinking about who might be open for collaboration and what would be some cool ways to provide some meaningful instruction with those teachers. So we're not all the way there yet. We have this for quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3, and we're still working on collecting the information for quarter 4 based on what our librarians taught last year. They kept their plan books, they report, what they did. And we continue to ask them, what did you do this year during first quarter? So we can flush it out and fill it in with even more and more and more stuff. So that's our approach to middle school and high school. One really nice way to kind of see it all at a glance. It could be so overwhelming as a new librarian. Our instructional coaches put together these collaboration overviews for every quarter. It's kind of slow to load here. Come on. But again, for our middle school librarians, and we have these for high school as well, it's a real succinct overview of look what you could be doing first quarter. Look at all of the opportunities for instruction that you have. It's on your shoulders to take those opportunities or to create your own. But look, in quarter 2 in middle school, 8th grade health, we already have these 2 lessons built. In 8th grade social studies, we already have this lesson built. Reach out to your teachers. For digital citizenship, these are the lessons that we have built for quarter 2. Find a way to deliver this content. We've creating pacing guides for what is happening instructionally in each content or area in middle school throughout the year. So our librarians can see, oh, English 7 is doing a unit on the Holocaust right now. Da, 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 da. How can I make that connection? So we have those pacing guides so they can see in one spot what every content area is doing. And again, just kind of a summary, a real tight overview of what are some of those lessons that are already built that you can provide. In addition, our librarians are responsible for making sure all of our digital citizenship concepts are taught throughout the year. They don't have to teach them all, but they have to make sure somebody else is if they're not. So this is just a reminder, what are the objectives that should be talked about this quarter? And how are you tracking and making sure that they are being taught? So we've tried to organize to make sure everything is as easy and accessible and simply organized so that they can maximize their instructional prowess and really be able to do their jobs well. That's our new middle school and high school stuff. So it's important to remember that everything is still evolving. We work on it all the time. We find mistakes frequently still. My dream is for every lesson at the elementary level, we have a second option for that lesson. So for teaching reading laterally in 4th grade, you could teach it this way, and that's great. Or you can teach it this way, and that's great. The lessons are different. We do things differently. We all have our own strengths. Here's a couple options that you can choose from. You don't have to teach them both, but choose one and do it the way that works best for you. Also, everything is yours to adapt. You're welcome to download our lessons. You're welcome to take them and spin them and make them your own in whatever way works in your world. So we want you to know that it's yours to use however it works for you. So sort of in summary, it was our objectives that really started us on this path. We knew we had to have specific, tailored, detailed objectives that told our administrators and our librarians, but also our administrators, this is what we teach. And this is what is important for your students to learn in your library. The lessons serve as our what? They are especially valuable to our brand spanking new librarians who've never taught this before. And it gives them a launching point. They don't have to teach it exactly the way we wrote it every year from now on, but teach it this way so you know how to teach it and what to teach, and then put your creative spin on it. But those lessons serve as a what, particularly for our new and inexperienced librarians. And then the LibGuides kind of tie it all together and bring out, this is how we get it done, and this is how we do it well. We know time is so valuable for our librarians. They don't have time to shelve books. They don't have time to plan their every ounce of their lessons and recreate the wheel. And so the LibGuide does that for them. Through our work, I think our biggest, oh gosh, not challenge, but the biggest asset of all of this work is creating that description of what our students gain from library instruction. Our librarians have always done a good job. They've always provided great instruction, but our administrators didn't know what they were doing, and we didn't have anything to communicate that. And so that has been a huge benefit for us. We're able to provide our novice and our veteran librarians with high quality lesson plans. And another benefit is that our librarians have this fabulous platform for growing and sharing what they're doing in their libraries. We always want to know what are those ways that you're adding to the lessons or tweaking it slightly? Or what are the other resources that you found that make that lesson so much better? We want to be able to share those and to help all of our librarians grow in their instruction. So it's who we are, and it's what we do. We always look forward to librarians from anywhere reaching out to talk to us about their ideas or their questions or their, suggestions for what might be the next way to improve our lessons. We're stronger together, and that is our hope by sharing them, is that we will have great librarians serving students everywhere. Um, so what kind of questions have I missed in the chat, or do you have out there in Zoom land?
Well, I can kick us off. I just want to make sure that we have time before you go to express our gratitude. It's certainly been echoed throughout your presentation. We are stronger together. That is the purpose of this group coming together. And Dr. Haeffner, we're just so, so thankful that you're willing to share all of this incredible work, because it creates something that all of us can build off of in our unique ways in our different districts. So it's such a gift to the profession, what you and your team have created and are willing to share. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm just so proud of it, and I'm proud of our librarians and the great work that they've done. I didn't write the lessons, right? I'm not in the library doing that work anymore. So it's our librarians in the field who have done it. My team and I have just packaged it all together, and so what other questions might be out there?
Hey, Dr. Hefner, I have a question about kind of how this has been received. You've talked a lot about the campus administrator. How about the community or maybe the district or your board members? Have you mentioned, I think at the beginning, you've had a chance to have some conversations around that. I'm just curious how this has been received by that broader audience.
Well, I think there's always a, a element of surprise and kind of that, wow, we didn't know that sort of reaction. A lot of our administrators have no idea what strong librarians look like and what a strong instructional library program should look like. I mean, they may not have seen it in their buildings. It may not have been modeled to them as students themselves. And so it creates for them a new reality and a new perception of, oh, this is what could be happening in our library space. Or better yet, oh, this is what has been happening in our library space, and I didn't even know it. It just adds an incredibly helpful communication piece to everything. And it's been received very well because of that. Librarians love feeling like they are better understood and that their work is valued. This allows them to talk about their value and their work in more concrete ways.
I really appreciate that. I think that's one of the things that our profession has been struggling with ever since I was a baby librarian is how do we share the value of what we're doing? And I think what you've done is hit a great resource, obviously, to demonstrate in their language and that they understand instructional objectives, day-to-day lesson, all that is much more speaking at their level versus, like you mentioned, the highfalutin national standards, which, are great, but very vague, very broad, and very, focused on us, a lot, and what we provide more than, focused on that student learning piece, which I think you guys just hit the nail on the head. So thank you for being willing to speak on this and sharing it so openly, as a lot of people said in the chat. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. Well, I will close because I think we're on the verge of our time being up. But I do want you to know that I mean it when I say reach out to me. You're welcome to. our team loves to hear how our work is being used, and it pleases us to know that people are using it, even if it needs work in some areas and there's a suggestion or a question or something. So really, feel free to reach out. Feel free to share with your librarian friends. There's no secret gateway or magic, password or anything that anyone needs to use this. So share it and help me get the word out, and hopefully it will save some librarians some of their precious time, and help them organize their instruction in some really good ways. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope the
I,
rest of your day goes well.
I just want to vouch that she really means it about reaching out. Christine has been amazing with her sharing and response. She's like, I feel like she's a mentor to me. And St. Vrain, we just had our late start, and our topic for this morning was digging into the lessons at a glance. If anyone's feeling overwhelmed, I would say that's the best place to start, the lessons at a glance page. And we made a copy. We've been using that as our beginning for St. Vrain, and today we are highlighting kind of what you were saying. I said, they're all amazing lessons, but we are highlighting the ones that, like, if you don't know where to start, here are the ones that you just got to get to. And everyone, the response has just been so great. And one other thing that you didn't mention that has also been a game changer is your multi-use, your backpacks. So if be sure to take a look at that, everyone, because that's another thing that we've been trying to replicate at St. Vrain, and the people have really been, it's been well received.
Helen, thanks for sharing that. One other way we've tried to support our librarians and support reading in the classroom is by building these backpacks. And what they do is they connect our ebook collections. Come on, second grade, open up. Our ebook collections to what they're learning in the classroom. So this is second grade. And if I click on science, here's a whole bunch of ebooks that support the topics that they're learning about in science in second grade that year. And so their teachers can direct them to their backpacks. And of course, these are all simultaneous access ebooks. And so we've built them around all of the different content areas, so that when they have extra time during their classroom time and the teachers are like, oh, they can direct them to the backpacks for some purposeful background building and some fun reading as well. So, and yes, some of them are light box books. We have a variety of ebook vendors that we use. Lightbox, Abdo, Capstone. And because we're formatting them, let's see here, in these web pages, we can link to books from any of our ebook vendors. And the students don't even recognize the difference. So it has been another fun project that we've been working on.
Dr. Haeffner, thank you. Your work is truly a testament to having strong district leadership in library services. And we're just so thankful to you and all of the library staff in Lincoln Public Schools that have contributed to this work. So thank you once again for joining us today.
You're welcome. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
Mm-hmm.